Hello everyone and welcome to Random But Relevant. I'm your guest host, Linda Derry, and my guest today is a successful real estate developer and a candidate for the 2025 Queensborough President election, Henry Ezeki. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Thank you. So I have some random but relevant questions for you just so the public can get to know you a little bit better so you can connect with Queens.
Absolutely.
First up, what's on your playlist?
I know you knew I loved music, that's why you asked me that.
Definitely, it's a hard question.
On my playlist right now is a song by my favorite artist, Burna Boy. I've been into Afrobeats lately, so I love his new jam called Common Person.
Okay, and what draws you to that song? What puts it at the top of your playlist?
Yeah, it's touching. I mean, that song, it's like, it rings home to me so much. You know, it goes, I'm a common person, but my happiness still is my own. So when I hear that song, for me, I look at myself as a common person, growing up in Queens, just thriving to make Queens a better place and a better future for our kids. But more importantly, knowing that through the struggles, my happiness and the happiness of all of us in Queens still belongs to us, so we can't lose track of that.
Absolutely. That's an amazing message.
Thank
It's
you.
especially since you're running for Queensborough President, it's a very diverse borough, the most diverse borough. So I'm sure a lot of people would like to know, is Afrobeats your favorite genre of music? Are there other top contenders up there? What do you have?
I gotta say, besides it being the most diverse borough in New York, I think Queens arguably is the most diverse borough in the entire world.
I'd agree.
Over 100 countries of folks live here, and a lot of my friends are from all over the world. So when it comes to music, I've learned to enjoy a wild array of music, from rap to R&B to Latin music, Filipino music. You know, you name it, I love it.
That's amazing. I'm the same kind of way. I love all kinds of music.
Yeah.
My next question for you is, what is the name of the last book you read?
I love to read. The last book I read is The Audacity of Hope by Barack Obama. In fact, I have to double down and say I read that book 3 times.
Okay. And what draws you to that book? What was the really moment that you realized that this was going to be your book that you were going to read?
Yeah. The message of The Audacity of Hope resonates with me, especially when he said, when there's no way, we make a way. And that's how I see my life and a lot of the lives of my friends and the residents of Queens. We find ways to make things work. We're Queens tough.
I love
Yeah.
that quote too, that we're Queens tough for sure. Are you an audiobook or like actual sit down, read the book person?
Yeah. With The Audacity of Hope, I've actually done both.
Okay.
But I enjoy, you know, when I'm on the plane, I love to like have a book, and it's medicinal for me.
Okay, that's awesome. So I also have a question for you. I'm a teenager myself. So who has helped you from your teenage years to who you are now? Because it's a huge transitional period and it's a lot of what defines many of us today. So who are those people that really put you to where you are now?
Absolutely. I started my first business when I was 17 years old, still a teenager, and I would have to say, if it wasn't for the encouragement of my family, my mom, my dad, my siblings, and my friends, the folks in Queens, they love to help their friends out. So I would have to pay my respect to my family first, and my friends and the people of Queens that have supported me through my journey in Queens.
And how was it growing up as a teenager in Queens for you? How was your experience? Did it lead to what you wanted to do with your life today?
I grew up in Southside Jamaica, Queens,
Okay.
and this is probably way before your time, in the 90s. And it was tough. It was rough, but we've come a long way. We've built up our infrastructure a little bit, and I know we can do better. And that's in part why I'm running, because I want a better education system than what we have now. I want better infrastructure. I want affordable housing, and I want a future in a Queens where everyone can truly prosper.
And I'd like you actually to elaborate on that, on what exactly made you be pro-president today or want to run for candidacy.
Absolutely. So my home got broken into twice last year, and when I called the police. It took them hours to arrive, the first time and the second time. And I felt that there was something fundamentally wrong with a city like ours, that we're still dealing with crime, we're still dealing with poor response time from our law enforcement partners. But I took it upon myself to go into our elected officials' office and ask, as a resident and as a voter, as a citizen of this community, for something to be done about crime. And the very next month, my brother, who lives in the same neighborhood in Jamaica, his home was broken into as well. And this was last year. And I said, that's it, I've had enough. I'm going to figure out how to get involved in our lawmaking process, and I'm going to try to make a change. And that's what I did.
Absolutely. That's an amazing message as well, of seeing change needed to be made and then deciding to take action yourself in doing so.
Absolutely.
So I feel like we've asked you a lot of random but relevant questions. So now more into what many Queens people would like to know. If or when you are elected, what does your first 100 days look like?
Good question. Wow. When I'm elected Queens Borough President, day one, I want to sit down with the mayor, city council, and go over my budget requirements. And it's very simple. We're behind in education. We have issues with our law enforcement partners. So we need to work on our budget when it comes to making sure our kids and education have enough funding so that kids can have a better environment to prosper when they're in school. They have the tools that they need. After school programs, we're deficient in that. We need to create more after school programs. And additionally, we have to make sure that our teachers are well paid, right? Because they're the light that guide these students to be the future of our generation.
Absolutely. That was an amazing first 100 days. You are also very much a natural at this interview process. This has been Random But Relevant, presented by MyBlock TV. When we come back, we're going to have some questions from residents all over Queens. Is that okay with you?
It's okay with me, but I want to share one thing before I let you go, because this is very important. I went to school in Jackson Heights, in Long Island City, in Queens, Aviation High School. And like many of us back then, we took 2 trains and a bus to get to school every morning. And I feel that our schools will be better off if schools start later and go on later, because what that does is it allows our kids and our teachers to get the well-needed rest that they need, and it keeps the kids in school longer, gives them extra things to do in school, extracurricular activities, whether you love music like I did, playing basketball, sports. We need to make sure we have those things in school. We got to provide the funding for those things. And on top of that, some of the studies that we've looked at show that many of our teachers and our students are sleep deprived because of how early they have to get to school, looking at transportation and commute time. So funding for schools to keep extracurricular activities in place, paying our teachers more, starting schools a little bit later so that kids can get the well-needed rest that they deserve. We see the studies have also shown that there's increase in their grade and performance in school. There is also better attendance when they get the well-needed rest that they need.
That's amazing.
I had to throw that in there.
Of course, thinking about our educators and our students is an amazing message, and we will be right back.
Hey everybody, this is Oswald Williams. You're watching MyBlock TV. Don't forget to check us out every Wednesday 9 p.m., every Saturday 1:30 p.m. exclusively on QPTV Spectrum. Other cable providers, please check local listings. Peace. Stay up, good people.
Hi, my name is Dwight, and I'm from Jamaica, Queens. My question is, what is the job of a Queens Borough President?
Welcome back to Random But Relevant, presented by MyBlock TV. I'm your host, Linda Derry, and that was a great question. What exactly does the Queen Borough President do? What will your job be?
That's a good question, because a lot of voters don't ask that, right? So to simplify it, the Queens Borough President is one that advocates for the people of Queens in vital issues. So when you talk about shortage in housing, Queens Borough President can influence the way we create housing, the way our city is being zoned. So zoning, land use, appoint community board members that can vote on crucial issues. Also work with the mayor on budgets on how the city spends on education, transportation, public-private partnerships, and that sort of thing. So it's a very important role that people need to pay attention to and go out there and vote. And when I'm elected Queens Borough President, we're going to do a lot better than what's going on right now.
Absolutely. And then speaking of what you just mentioned in terms of having partnerships and connections, as we've mentioned, Queens is one of the most, if not the most, diverse boroughs
Absolutely.
in New York. How does that resonate with you? Does it resonate from where you're from? Anything like that?
Yeah, it makes Queens fun, right? Living in a place where you can have this wide scope of experiences amongst cultures, food, and the topography in Queens is just interesting, right? We got the two biggest airports in New York, right? JFK and LaGuardia. We've got some of the most amazing skyline. We've got the Rockaways. We've got our transportation system is impeccable, right? So there's a lot of great things and great reasons why people enjoy living in Queens and why people want to come to Queens.
Absolutely.
We just got to make it better.
Absolutely. I'm sure I would like to know, and many of the people in Queens would like to know, where's your part in that diversity? Where are you from?
Yeah, I thought my accent gave it away.
Just clarifying for us and our viewers.
I'm from Nigeria.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you find a lot of like your connection of your culture in Queens? Do you bring it yourself in Queens?
Oh yeah, I'm very close to my family. My mother reminds me every day when she cooks me a good African meal where I'm from. And so, and my strong upbringing and holding the culture together in my family, I think that's true with most families that come from different countries.
That's amazing. Thank you
Yeah.
again to our viewer who asked that question, and we'll be back with more in a few. Welcome back to Random But Relevant, presented by MyBlock TV. I'm your host, Linda Derry, and I have actually one more question for you, Borough President candidate, and it's coming from me, a Queensboro resident. What do you think makes a great candidate for the Queensboro President?
That's a very good question, Linda. Linda, do you know that last election cycle, only 12% of the resident voting population voted?
Wow.
And you know, we hit the streets asking folks that didn't vote why, and many of their frustration comes from our elected official talking big, promising to do XYZ, and they don't deliver. Their job and what they do is aligned with big donors, special interest, and people are tired. In some cases, when we speak to young folks in Jamaica, one young man I spoke to on Sutphin Boulevard said, I don't vote because I don't think my vote's gonna count. And the elected officials, the last time I voted for them, they never did what they said they're gonna do. So for me, a great candidate is the one that values integrity, transparency, and listens to the voice of the community. That's so crucial. You know, Abraham Lincoln once said, government should be for the people, of the people, and in fact about the people. So when we elect officials out there, we want to make sure our interest is put first. And when I'm elected, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm not going to be bought. I'm going to make sure that all of the issues that people are having in Queens, day one, I'm addressing those issues. And I think we can do better as a society.
Absolutely. That was amazing. And, you know, as a person who may, and also the residents of Queens that may not be so in tune with the world of elected officials, I would like, can you pinpoint one thing that you will do differently than past elected officials that you would like your residents to know?
Great question. My entire life, I've had one job, and that's my business. And that job is building affordable housing in the most distressed parts of Queens, Far Rockaway, south part of Jamaica, Springfield Gardens, Laurelton, St. Albans. These are places that I've built homes, rented apartments, dealt with homeowners day to day, and I feel like we have a lot of work to do to make sure people that work here, live here, can afford to pay for housing here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And then you've spoken a little bit about how you talked about affordable housing and things of that nature. What would you like the people of Queens to know about your specific plans for that in terms of, is it part of your budget plan? I know that you mentioned that before.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we want to sit down with and work with the Committee for Land Use, Building and Housing, and come up with real plan that will meet our affordable housing needs, not just talking points. We want to sit down with these folks and make sure that we get active on building, creating jobs, creating affordable construction projects, creating affordable housing for folks, and more importantly, private-public partnership, where people that live here, residents of this great borough, can partner up with government to build and to work.
Thank you so much.
Amen.
This has been an amazing sit down with Mr. Ezeki, but we're not done yet. We have a few more questions from more of Queens residents, and then we'll be back to wrap up.
As a resident of Springfield Gardens, I would like to know what your overall vision for Queens is.
That's a great question. My vision for Queens is a prosperous one that includes folks walking on the street, taking our mass transit system and not feeling afraid. A Queens where our schools are sound, we have extracurricular activities, after school programs, keep our kids in school, away from the streets, and lastly, making sure that there's security. Our homes are secure, law enforcement is taken care of, and they're doing their jobs, keeping us and keeping Queens safe.
Absolutely. And before we close out today, do you have anything else to say about your general message about you to our residents of Queens?
Absolutely. I want folks to go to my website, voteike.com, and voice your concern. I want to be that leader that listens to the people of Queens. I want to see a Queens that thrives on compassion, progress, and success. A Queens that our kids can be proud of. Join me in this journey and my vision for making Queens a better place.
This has been another episode of Random But Relevant presented by MyBlock TV. If you'd like any more information on Mr. Ikezi's campaign, you can follow the links below. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being a great interviewee, and have a great night.
Thank you very much, Linda, and thank you to the people of Queens.